This is MOBABOARD. It's a gamepad that I developed as a more efficient alternative to a keyboard and mouse that I used to play. It utilized different hardware and ergonomics to provide a better overall experience. I developed it roughly over a 20-month period on and off. Originally, I developed lo-fi models using clay, but in July of 2016 I bought a 3D printer which greatly assisted with its development. It took me a while to figure out that I would actually need to develop two models, one for 3D printing and one that I could put into production due to the nuances of each process. My product's physical appearance was sort of dictated by the hardware which I chose, such as the switches and the wires, and that predetermined the structures that could lay beneath. I ended up developing a huge amount of prototypes, each with their positives and negatives. This particular one I CAD'd up, printed out, and then found that all the keycaps were way too small and close together, and it sort of spurred my development of the ergonomics of the rest of the model. The curved key rows felt fantastic, but the square feeling switches were not optimized to be put in this layout. They're intended to be in a row. The thumb cluster, which is the key printed in red, were also really interesting, as no switches on your typical keyboard are put sideways. This led to a more geometrical design, as it housed key switches and the wires much more neatly. It was also considerably easier to create specific angles for each row to be on. Eventually, I decided it would be easiest to keep the typical rows of keys. It was at this point that I got around to using my printer's default slicer to using Simplify 3D. It made a huge difference to the print quality and my ability to create reliable overhangs. The walls could be printed at a much thinner resolution, and it allowed me to pack in a whole bunch more detail. I also decided that having full mechanical key switches in the thumb cluster was too unreliable, so I developed my own switch mechanisms. Using off-the-shelf parts, they ended up working fantastically. Also, finding the space to wire them in correctly was difficult. The improvement of my print quality allowed me to seek out much more organic-looking shapes. I started playing with the form and function of the design and having a look at what similar products had gone for in terms of aesthetics. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to print the full organically shaped body. It looks a bit rough and ready, but I was still learning Fusion 360 at the time, and it gave a good idea of what might be possible. I'd love to come back to the project sometime soon and have another crack at perfecting the design. I did, however, get a go at printing the palm rest, which works amazingly well. The original print on the MakerBot slicer is in the background and Simplifies is in the foreground. Overall, the MOBABOARD gave me a great grounding in 3D modeling, printing, slicing and product development. It was a hobby project that got way out of hand, and I can't wait to develop it further.